Jesse. Welcome to my back lawn.
All right, live. Welcome, everybody. We're going to go through a couple preparatory movements, and then we're going to set the stage for the bigger movements with Dr. Goodman. He'll be joining us shortly, but we're starting. Let's get into a flow. We're going to set the stage for reverse archers and windmills, pelvic-driven rotation with a little bit thoracic mobility in the process. Take your legs nice and wide. Let's turn the toes in. We're going to root in. Find those pads of your feet. We've got that subtle internal rotation. That means our toes are slightly angled in. And we're going to bring those clavicles up nice and high. The chest is up. Lifting the weight of your head up off your neck as we lengthen through the back neck. We'll float the arms out to a long wing. And let's go for 5 big expansive inhalations here. In through the nose, lifting and expanding the rib cage. Exhaling, working to stay big and expansive. Every exhale is an active engagement of that abdominal, lengthening, engaging, wrapping in towards center, working to maintain that big expansive inhalation. As you're breathing in and up, start thinking about the feet tensioning towards each other for that inward anchor. We're going to start to let the hips pull back while you're maintaining that connection up the inner thighs. As we pull back, we scoop our hands out to that founder. We squeeze the fingertips. Think about your elbows are down towards each other. You're looking at that sphere and lengthening through the back neck. So I look at it and I pull my nose and throat away. And I'm simply looking to feel the back of my legs tension as they pull behind my heels. My feet anchoring, feeling that tension up the inner thighs, rooting in as I squeeze my fingertips, getting those muscles under the arms, the lats to engage. As I lengthen the neck, I'm strengthening and posturing that neck to be in good alignment. Let's go for 5 big inhalations, doing your best to maintain that connection amongst everything. In through the nose, expand to elevate. Exhale, engaging the abdominal. If you're joining in, you haven't been practicing for a while, your goal is that the hips have hinged back, the knees are subtly unlocked, the fingertips are squeezing, shoulders are down away from the ears, and you're keeping that connection of the fingertips. Those of us that have the connection, have been practicing for a while, inward anchor, feeling it up the thighs, rooting our 3 points of contact, connecting through our fingertips, engaging the lats. Neck is long, crown of the head is reaching. As you breathe in through the nose, back of the rib cage is expanding. Slowly using that inward anchor, tensioning up the inner thighs to pull yourself up out of the hinge, not losing the inner thigh connection. Till we stand all the way up, shake it off. The inner thigh connection is a foreign thing to you. That's an app practice. Get on that baseline program. Look to find and feel your inner and outer anchors. With the left foot forward, the right foot back, I square my hips up. The back heel slightly elevated and turned out. The lead leg's got that subtle degree of internal rotation. I root into my 3 points of contact. Heavy into the pad at the base of the big toe. Heavy into the pad at the base of the pinky toe and the heel. 3 points. The back heel is slightly elevated. The heel is turned out, so my hips are square. We're gonna go measuring sticks, top of the pelvis, low ribs. As I pull my elbows wide, I bring my chest up. My neck is long. We're gonna start to anchor the legs. The front heel's tractioning back. The back toes are tractioning forward. Let's breathe in through the nose, expand and elevate the ribs for a few lunge decompression inhalations. Pushing the feet apart, we're going to hinge out and over the crease of the hip. Loading 80% of the weight out under the front foot. I've got tension up the back side of the lead leg. The front knee is still in line with the ankle or slightly back. Hands to the hips. Focusing on pelvic guided rotation. The right hip rotates towards the inside of the left knee. I feel it tension. I pull myself back to center. Rotating in, lead leg is not shifting. It's maintaining its position, rooting into those 3 points of contact. Back to center. Let's go for 5 rotations. Neck is long. We rotate back to center. Inhale and rotate. Exhale back to center for 2. Inhale and rotate for 3. Exhale back to center. Inhale and rotate back to center. And for good measure, we rotate and hold. We float the hands out. We squeeze the fingertips. Float them down off the line of your heart. Wrapping that back right hip towards the inside of the lead leg. Squeeze your fingertips. 3 big inhales. Engaging that abdominal on the exhale. Inhale, rotate, come up nice and tall, step the back leg up, root into that lead leg, step the left leg back. We settle into that 50-50 position. Slight angle on the lead leg, back heel's elevated, turned out, hips are squared up, arms out, chest up, lift the weight of your head off the neck. We're nice and spring loaded here. We don't want to be locked out rigid. I don't want you down here, all casual, just showing up for class. Let's get active. Let's be nice and spring loaded. We're going to lengthen through, hands to the hips. Start to lock in your anchor. Front heel's grabbing the floor. Those 3 points of contact, and they're dragging back. Without moving the leg, I've got tension up the back side of the lead leg. Back toes are dragging forward. I've got length and activation on the front side of the back. We're going to hinge out and over the crease of the hip, and we're going to rotate towards center. We're going to come back up. We're spreading the floor apart when we go into this hinge. Rotate. Back up. Rotate again. And up. 2 more. Wrapping in and up. We're going to rotate and hold. Float the hands out. Let them come down to height of your heart. Squeezing the fingertips. Rooting into the lead. 3 points of contact. 3 big inhalations. Rotate back to center. Now, before we get Dr. Goodman in here, I want to set the stage for our windmill. That's prepping us for our reverse archer. Let's prep for the windmill. We'll bring Dr. Goodman in, and we're going big. So we're going to take our legs nice and wide. We're going to turn our toes in. I'm going to let my hips rock back and in. So think about hips hinge back, knees responding on lock, and just play rocking for a moment. Your hips are shifting behind the heels, and we're coming up. Now we're going to just subtly hinge back. We're going to start to reach the right hip away from that left hand. We're pulling the ends apart. There's a subtle rotation of the pelvis as I reach and I come back up. Right hip, left hand, reach away. I'm looking for that shift of the pelvis, that rotation and reach. My upper body's following. Couple more here. Look to feel as you reach the 2 ends apart. The inner thigh on the long leg, the one we're pulling away from, should feel tension. Back up. Reach them apart. Back up. Let's do the other side. You can grab that bum, opposite hand, pull the 2 ends apart, and come up. Left hip, right hand, reach away. Opposite hip and hand are pulling apart. Let the hip shift back and then pull like you're trying to bump us one drawer closed with one butt cheek. Pull yourself up. Pull them apart. Now let's shuffle back and forth. Do your best to find and feel these connections. Right hip, left hand, pull them apart. And up. Left hip, right hand, pull them apart. And up, pull them apart. Up, pull them apart. Come up. Shake it off, and if Dr. Goodman's ready, we're going big.
Ready.
All right, we prepped him for some reverse archers.
Good work.
And some windmills.
Yeah, good work.
Awesome. Okay, any notes for people before they dive into these bigger ones?
Just take your time. That's the foundation. We were talking about this today at brunch with another doctor. where we were just talking about the whole idea of our work is patterning. And patterning happens with frequency and with intent, not with intensity and duration. So what you work on with a pattern is do it right, do it often, all the time. Do it right, do it often. As you get really good at it, that's when you can take it to strength. That's when you can take it to a higher intensity level, but not until you've really got the pattern down. With windmills, take your time. Once you get these down, they open up a lot of doors.
Awesome. Do it right, do it often. Let's take our time. So, Eric, would you take your legs wide one more time? We're going to go through a few more lateral hinges. We'll show you some arm tracing from above. You'll go through the full windmill at that point. So, Eric's going to go a couple decompression breaths here. Notice his toes are angling forward. We can go slightly inward, but we want to make sure at minimum they're facing forward. He's pulling his elbows wide. He's lifting these clavicle bones high. As I always say, if you've got beams of light coming up from there, we want them up. He's lifting the weight of his head off his neck as he lengthens chin in, neck long. Notice he's not packing the chin. When he pulls his two ends apart, his right hip is reaching further back. I'm going to let him flow. We're shifting sides. Left hip pulls back. Right hip's going to reach apart. Let's go for 10 of these. We're going to go left hip for 1. Pull yourself up. Right hip for 2. 3. Start to try to coordinate your breath. Inhale for 4. Exhale, come back up. Inhale, pull them up for 5. Exhale your way up. 5 more for 5. For 4. 3. 2. Last one, reach it back, pull yourself up nice and tall. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through a little drill with the hands out in front of us. And Eric's gonna show you first. Watch, he's gonna let his hip guide and he's gonna trace. Watch what he does with his hips. If you wanna walk him through as you do a couple of these, Eric.
Sure. The most important thing to remember, the reason we're focusing on moving the hip here is just the directive of shoulder range of motion. So anytime, especially in the windmill, when we're tracing and opening the chest and trying to keep the thoracic spine from jutting forward, flaring the ribs, we use that trace, we use that hip angle directive to assist keeping the thoracic spine bigger in the back as the rotation occurs, instead of keeping the pelvis fixed, twisting the spine from a fixed position. That shrinks the spine, it creates the wrong ranges of motion. So we're practicing the right ones. So we're here, open, open.
Notice, show him one more time, Eric. Watch his hips lead. Go ahead. Hips initiate and he draws the trace.
They initiate both directions.
Do your best to feel that. Let your hips guide and then you draw. Nice and controlled. One point I always hear hit on, especially in the windmills, that we want to make sure too, your hips are still reaching back behind the heels, that your weight doesn't load out and over.
It's a very big difference between those two. Let me know when you're ready.
Yep. Okay. So let's go ahead. We're going to bring ourselves into the founder. You can watch Eric's first one and then fall in. We're going to do 10 total windmills. Oh, yeah. We're going out the gate.
Nice.
You're going to do your best. Watch him fall in. Maybe take a break and keep watching his technique and do your best to mimic. So he pulls his hips back with his founder. His knees have a little bit of bend. He's going to bring his hands under his heart towards the ground. He's letting his knees and hips come down just enough so his fingertips touch. We're going to go right thumb into the left palm. His hip's going to initiate just like the lateral. And he starts to draw his bow and he reaches. From his hips, he's going to let everything return. We're going to work our best to keep this pace. Let's inhale and trace for 2. Let's go for 3. Your job is to try to feel these hips guiding rotation. 4. Number 5, let's hold it. Right hip is reaching back. He's extending his hand. He's keeping that fingertip just barely touching. He's not resting on the hand. He's looking at his thumb and he's pulling his nose and throat away from it. He's breathing and expanding his rib cage. When he's ready from his hip, he'll return back to center. Now he's going to start his left side. His left hip's going to rotate, and that left thumb gets to follow. And he comes back to center. Everything is being guided from the hip, making sure that you're still got it behind. If your low back is starting to cook, You're doing it right. The whole low back should be on. Always muscular sensation activation, not structural pain and numbness, tingling, the negative stuff. I think he's got one more. Let's go one more good one. Slow, hold it, reach that elbow. He's going to think now about a big inhale here, fingertip to fingertip, expanding the rib cage. His left hip is still reaching back. He's got length and tension on the inside thigh of the long leg. He's going to slowly, just the elbow is going to bend. He's going to inhale, legs, hips rotate. He's going to start to wrinkle the floor between his feet. Big inhalation. He'll push his hands into his shins. Notice his position. His neck is long. He's got a beautiful positioned torso, like he's planking almost. He's pushing into his legs. He's got his lats on. The back of his legs are on. He's wrinkling the floor. The inner thighs are on. And he's slowly going to use all of those muscles to pull him up. He's going to hold into his founder. We got 30 seconds here. Wrinkle the floor, squeeze the fingertips, and breathe. Look to see how many of these muscles can we feel. Can we wrinkle the floor and feel the inner thighs? Can you slow the breath down? If you can hear Eric, he's dragging out that exhale. He's calming his system. And I like to say the moments of chaos that foundation training can give us. He's going to shrug, engage his lats. I cannot separate his fingertips. And he's going to use that inner anchor, the tension between his feet, the sensation up the thighs to pull himself up. And he's going to shake it off. Well, we all shake it off. Eric, why is that inner thigh tension so important?
10 of those, huh?
Payback. Okay. It's coming.
Okay.
But real quick, I have reverse archers. I'll take the reverse archers. But why, Eric, adductors? Let's hit on that for a moment.
Central tension. That's if there's like a short answer, it's central tension. The pubic symphysis is the bottom of the bowl of your pelvis. That is basically secured underneath by these two adductor tendons and the big muscle of the groin. And they close your legs, but more importantly than closing the legs is that they sort of create an upward. So watch my position change there. As the legs rotate in, there's a lift that occurs. And that lift is actually because the pubic symphysis is being pulled down by the tension at the adductors, which facilitates the ability of the torso from that platform to much more easily lift off. I'm extra sweaty today.
I know. It sounds so simple. For me, it just brings this really powerful sensation of stability. You know, and I know you've talked on for low back strength and stability. The adductors are a big player. I try to always reinforce that with people, especially when we're trying to figure out all the whys. But let's do some reverse archers.
No, let's do more windmills.
Okay, let's go. Round two.
I thought you said you wanted to do 10.
Well, that was 10 the first one, 5 and 5.
Oh,
so let's go. Let's do a ladder because I want to make sure you all get really good at this.
Oh.
We're going to go on this round 3 and 3, 2 and 2, 1 and 1. Okay, so let's go. Set back up again. Take them nice and wide.
That was my misunderstanding. I thought you meant we were going to do 10 and 10 of those in a row. I was like, that's legit.
Well, we already did 10. So let's do one lateral hinge to start. Right hip, left hand, reach them apart. So look at Eric's reaching the right bum back further. He's got length and tension. Think about this long leg is kind of wrapping and spiraling, working to root in. He's got his 3 points of contact, and this right cheek is reaching further away than left hand. Notice he's not collapsing into the knee either. It's still tensioned up and back. Now he's going to push into this long leg, tension it across, use the inner thigh to pull to the center, and then he's going to pull, switch sides. Left hip, right hand.
One thing, just as I'm doing this, very often I'll use the analogy or the kind of the imaginary idea. As you reach the right arm forward, grab a rope that's in front of you. Strong rope, grab it. Think of that hip pulling away from the rope. And then as you come up to center, use the lat, use the grip strength, use the chin, and pull the rope towards you. And it's just one of those nice things that really works well in getting the imagination to help the muscles recoil.
Lat. A lot of lat right away, yeah.
So pull, pull. And when you think of that reach, it actually starts to make sense. Like, think of an anchor line, you know? And that's kind of where we're going with this over and over.
Bring me back to my sailor days, back when I was in the Navy. I was never in the Navy. Here we go. Windmills, you got 3 on each side. Reaching back, float those hands under the chest. Let's take some good, strong inhalations. Looking down, lengthen the back neck. Let the right hip initiate, and you're going to trace. Slow and control. Rotate, extend. Let the hip guide you back. Wrap and rotate. This one we're going to hold. Take your time. Let it rotate, open, reach to the sky. Eric shrugging his shoulders down. He's breathing wide between his shoulders. This is a powerful position. His right hip is still reaching back. While he's looking at that thumb, he can stay looking at the thumb. If he wants to do any little cervical work, he can look up at the top palm and just give himself a nice rotation. When he's ready from the hip, he's going to rotate it back to center. Let's get the other side. Let that left hip reach and rotate. Hands to the sky. And he's tracing down. Do your best to let that hip guide and rotate. Last one. Take your time. Big inhale. Reach. Hold it. Let's give the cervical a little bit of love on this side. I know he's already been doing it. When he's ready, hip rotates back. Watch again. He pushes into the legs. He thinks Superman chest. His neck is long. He squeezes the fingertips. He wrinkles the floor between the feet. He comes up tall. Take about 30 seconds.
Good exercise. It's a good exercise.
Very powerful exercise. Good range of motion. I do it even the most simplistic variations before every time I go surfing.
Yeah.
Like I've just, when I've not done it, Kehei has been with me, and I've just been like, I wish I'd done windmills before we surfed. Just gets everything fired up. Okay, we've got 2 reps on each side, but now we're going to do these alternations. You know, right, left, right, left. So we're wide, pull the 2 ends apart. Nice, deep. Hips are back legs are on. Slow and controlled. Right hip rotates. Back down. Left hip rotates. Back down. Last one. Back down. Come back up. Pausing in that founder. Look at very little knee bend. They're just unlocked. The biggest joint of his body is the one that's reaching back behind him. That's a big factor you want to make sure you're finding. Only 1 round left.
Cool.
Welcome. It's nice down here.
It's cooler down here. There's a nice breeze.
I'm a survivor. That's what I'm doing down here. Last round. Let's go. Take them wide. Turn those toes in. We're going to give you the minimal cueing, but we're going to try to slow it down over 10 seconds each rep because you only have 1 rep.
See if you can keep your, if windmills are easy for you or doable, keep the toes lifted throughout this whole repetition.
I would say for you, that for those of you that have practiced for a while or on the app actively doing this and you've got these connections, pull the toes up. You should be there. Those of you that are very new or stopping in for the first time, maybe stick to lateral hinges if you're not finding it. You have to give your body time to learn this. Let's go. Reach the 2 ends apart. His hands come to the ground, founder first. They come to the ground. He's not resting. Now, 10-second rotation. Right thumb into the left palm. Whoa, slow, slow. His hips rotating. He feels it rotate. He feels the elbow come up. I think you got about 4 seconds to open up that elbow. We got to draw it out. Beautiful. Breathe wide, end to end. Looking down. Pull your nose and throat long. Beautiful big inhales. When he's ready from that hip, he's going to wrap back down. Left hip, super slow. Super slow. How slow can we be? Letting this left hip rotate. Nice, powerful inhale. Set the stage, expansive. Nice. Sounds like the crows are applauding for this one. Reach, big inhale between the fingertips. That left hip is reaching back. Ooh, those toes are up. That long leg is spiraling, wrapping in, working to maintain that inner thigh connection. And when he's ready from the hip, we're going to bring it down, pass through the founder, squeeze the fingertips, spread the floor apart on this one. Push the feet apart and pull yourself up tall. Nice.
That's good.
All right. So lateral hinges to windmills, good prep. For anybody out there wondering, like, what's some other impactful benefits of a windmill that they might want to go, I should do more of this?
Sure. Let me catch my breath for a
Yeah.
minute.
Let me wait till he's out of breath. I'm going to ask the big questions.
Okay. So what the windmill, so let me break it down first. The windmill is just a series of biomechanics that facilitates spinal rotation from the pelvic center instead of from a spinal learned center. What that means is, all right, let's take us out of that position. You've been practicing the windmill, so your body knows that when the hips hinge, there's a rotational component available. So the next time you throw, golf, surf, that as soon as you change that rotational axis, your hips have learned that they initiate that direction before the chest initiates that direction. So it's a sequence of rotation happening from your center of gravity instead of from a learned, perceived center of gravity. And that changes a lot, no matter the sport, no matter the performance, no matter the movement. If it's hip-centric before spine-centric, it's going to be more efficient. It's that simple.
That's beautiful. Let's go for it's my turn. I set the stage with woodpecker rotations. So why don't you take me through some reverse archers?
Okay, switch up.
I promised big movements.
Good, I like it. So the reverse archer is a powerhouse. If you're looking at sciatic symptoms, if you're looking at spondylolisthesis, if you're looking at scoliotic changes, this is where we're going to use the reverse archer heavily. It's like loading a bowstring from the IT band and the lat. Go ahead and left foot forward, right foot back. Notice the angle of Jesse's back foot. He's got some torque starting out in it. It is setting the direction that his torso is ultimately going to get to, okay? So now with the reverse archer, there's this little like 1.5 to 2 inch hip hinge. Don't be straight up and down. Also, don't be all the way in a woodpecker. They're different. They're kind of in between. The weight is through the front foot. Draw the front heel into the ground. And as you're doing that, lift your chin up and back. And as you do that, the right hip, that's your left hip, the left hip and the left fingers are going to trace the right arm. The left hip initiates, and you're going to feel, if you're doing this correctly, an immediate iliotibial band lengthening, an eccentric kind of grab on and hold. Now, here's the secret. Don't tell anybody. This bone right here, the outside edge of the fifth metatarsal, the tiny little bone between your pinky bone and your heel, push that into the ground hard and push the big toe joint subsequently into the ground. Feel the IT band wrap the whole foot and take a giant deep breath about 1 inch underneath your left armpit. From that bone on the outside edge of the left foot, you're going to pull back to center. When you get back to center, try to spread your feet apart, push them apart for just a moment. And then push yourself right back into that reverse archer. Trace from the left hip, draw across the body, push the elbow and hands apart like you're pulling a bowstring. Push the left big toe, and then a straight line diagonally in the foot to the left outside edge of the middle of the foot. Push both into the ground. Use that force to spin back to center. Come on out of that. And before you even change anything, just walk for a second. Just feel the difference in the iliotibial bands, the outside wrapping musculature of each leg. And then we'll go right foot forward, left foot back.
Feels so good.
Good right about here? Okay. So from this angle, first watch the lift that Jesse has. He's going to get up as tall as he can. He's going to push off that back heel. But once he's pushing off, he's doing more of a hip and torso lift than he's doing a back heel push. Chin back, chest up, subtle hip hinge, small subtle hip hinge. Arms go forward, just like a basic, halfway into a woodpecker. On this one, you have a bit more of an even dispersion between the feet. Right foot, left foot, they're sharing the weight of the body, more or less, in this position. That right hand is going to trace, and the right hip is going to initiate the backward motion. As you're pulling length into the iliotibial band, as everything is lengthening under tension in an eccentric learning contraction, push the big toe joint into the ground, push the proximal head of the fifth metatarsal. That's your word for the day. That little lateral bone, that tiny little push button that you can push on the outside edge of the foot into the ground, and then use that force to come back to center. You can do one more. Right when you get back to center, pull right back into it. Trace right back into it. Hold. Find that breath right under the right armpit. Lift the back of the skull. Take a deep breath. Use it to come back to center. Shake it off a little bit. So what we're going to do now, instead of a hard lateral or a reverse archer, we're going to use it kind of as like a simple pattern.
Okay.
And then we're going to take it into the step backs.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm talking about with this is, instead of creating this big tension in that position, let's kind of push the feet apart. And what you're going to do, I just want to show it first. And we're just going to give a little initiation. We're just going to work on the initiation until it feels more like we're pushing the right hip forward than we are pulling the left hip backward. And that's what we're looking for when we're kind of just patterning it.
Okay.
All right. So left foot forward, right foot back, chin back, chest up. Big back of the ribs breath, get broad, engage the lats by scooping the shoulder blades like they're hugging your rib cage from below. Long neck. So on that left side, I want you to imagine you're throwing a punch, but just the last moment of it, where the shoulder and the hip kind of have to push forward to the right, and you're making space by pulling the left shoulder back, and then right back to center. So think of it more of a push than a pull. The right hip is pushing the left hip out of the way, but the left hip is allowing it. Give it minimal pressure and allow the movement to occur. The most important piece here, though, is that we're not caving in at the chest. You're staying broad and tall at the back of the chest. Let's go one more. And now here's the cool thing about foundation training and controlling the body. Same exact position. Go right back to the center. And now, from the left hip, from the left shoulder, pull yourself into the pose and feel the difference. Yep. And now push yourself out of the pose. And pull and feel that puppet string control that you start to get of your torso and your hip joints. These positions are simple human positions. Adding tension to them throughout each phase of the position is the strength that you feel and the skill that you're developing. So don't skip. And when you get good at it, kind of reverse the tension in the same positions. That's it. It's like a dance move. And then go ahead and switch sides.
Oh, yeah.
So this is how you would take it from a tension building exercise to a range of motion building exercise. They both work one and the same, but if you add a little focus here, a little focus there, you can focus them in better. Add your hip hinge, right foot is forward, back hip is rotated in. Notice how much range of motion when you push the left hip and torso instead of pulling the right hip and torso. Feel the additional range of motion. And then do a couple where you're really pulling the right hip and shoulder. And feel where you feel the hiccups and the lagging strands and the tight points. And breathe into them. Pull into them. When they feel stuck, that's when you push from the other side. Let's do 3 or 4 more. Simple, easy, just mechanical motion. No stress in between the joints. Just range. And then come on out of it.
Just loaded.
Works well.
Woo!
So what that mimics is simple walking patterns. I mean, that exercise, everything you do in your body is kind of a cross body. You're almost always absorbing a throw. This is what walking is. All right, and then you go to the next one. You kind of absorb a throw and stand yourself up, and that's walking. So the more we can mimic that cross pattern accurately and move accurately within it, the less stress you're going to feel through your movements throughout the day. And that's ultimately your goal.
I could say this has been a non-negotiable warm-up. I don't know if anybody knows I'm a runner now. I've been doing a lot of running. Went from no running to 16 miles in 1 week, and I felt amazing. And I blamed solely on doing this before I ran and when I was done. And at no knees, no ankles, no stuff. So it's been a really nice run warm-up. And just, I felt like my body was gliding, but my lungs and everything else was really struggling.
You know, what's interesting is I don't think I would have typically put this in. It belongs in a run warm-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's this for anybody looking for one. How often are we asked for that? Add reverse archers right away.
I did all the others from the running program, but I added this, and it's just, this is my run warm-up. This is my post weightlifting, this in a standing leg trace.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just been non-negotiable. Now you want to take me through some step backs because I don't want to miss those.
But also maybe on Monday, let's film a run warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, running warm up coming.
So with the reverse archer, with the lateral hinge, with the windmill, you make a lot of circumferential radius and circumference-based rotational range of motion improvements in the hip, and that translates to hip flexion and hip extension range of motion improvements. Now, the step back is my favorite hip flexion, hip extension exercise. It's pure counterbalance, and it is a cognitive builder. You are literally like developing a very healthy movement pattern that immediately translates to everything you do.
Yeah.
All we're doing, do it from the side first. Same arm, same leg. Right hand, right foot. I like to tell people, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get your mind on the movement pattern, and then just push the right hand and the right foot away from each other as far as you can, and then pull them towards each other as strong as you can, but slowly. So imagine you're kind of moving through mud. Push them away from each other, and then pull them towards each other.
And now, Eric, how cognizant do we want to be of when we step back that this leg is not kind of doing one of these numbers?
Yeah, we're not. So great. We're not. Watch the difference from that profile. If I want my left hip to guide my range of motion when I do this accurately, I'm kind of hinging the position, and then there's a little knee bend. You notice, like I'm allowed to go here.
Yeah.
A little better there, Paul? Okay. So as I go into this, my left knee is going to bend, but my hip is governing the whole motion, versus if I sink into that left knee and I just kind of drop down. Very different process.
I also think if there's a wall or something that we're stepping back away from, I'm pushing into the wall and this not going forward, but everything's pushing away from the wall. It's just my brain of like your rope.
Yeah, I love it. So let's go 10 step backs on each leg, just alternate 5 and 5. All right.
So
just watch Jesse's rhythm here. You're keeping your body centered to the best of your ability with the foot remaining on the ground. The toes are wide. They're spread and strong. And a very important note here, if you let your head get off axis, or if you smell your way forward, kind of lifting the nose and reaching it forward, it's going to be a much harder exercise. Keep your spine on axis and well aligned by lifting the weight of the head up and back the whole time you do the exercise. So don't be here. Lift the weight of the head. Stay decompressed. In fact, let's do it this way. Stop for just a moment. Big decompression, inhalation. Hold it as you step back. Exhale forward. Let's make it like a piston. Load. Exactly. Load the whole system with an inhalation, and then slowly but powerfully push the air out as you're coming out of that step, which is ultimately.
Breathe away from the hands.
There you go.
Back of the ribs.
So Jesse's hands right now are on his serratus anterior. They're just below his chest, just below his belly. Calm that musculature in there. It's a very important tissue. Breathe into it, but don't thrust it forward. In fact, breathe into it by kind of pulling the tissue away from the hands as you inhale.
Am I a nerd if I'm thinking Tony Stark, Iron Man right now?
Yes.
That would feel pretty cool.
Hadouken.
Hadouken. Yeah.
Right. So what this is all about is just loosening up the joints, getting everything to work. But as you do it, feeling that absolute concurrent strength that's happening throughout the entire range. As strong here as you are here, 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 here. Every position has to be able to support the position itself. That's the range.
My number one thing I always go into if I'm working with people or just in my own body is that it should feel muscular and supported. I don't feel my knees. I don't feel ankle. I just feel the muscles really guiding, and that's why I'm always going slow. Is it just feels like a nice degree of control in the movement. I don't feel like, oh, I might lose this at some point. So it's something to think about.
So let's say we were doing all of this and I was like, oh shit, my back's a little tight. My back hurt. Give me an exercise real quick that supports me. Just give me something real quick that just supports me.
It's going to support you.
That if I got a little pain, I want to protect, I want to be active, I'm hurting a little bit, give me some support.
Want to be active, you want a little bit of support. Can I lay on the ground?
Of course.
Okay, so we're going to lay on the ground, and we're going to go through a on our back. You're nice and relaxed, and we're going to find that breath here as we go. This will be kind of our closeout for the day. And so We'll have a few more notes for you, but let's all finish on the ground here. Notice as Eric sets his legs up, then you can fall in with him. The legs go long.
Sorry,
The
Paul.
toes pull towards the face. The knees unlock and they're wrapping into hug. Imagine that your hips are spiraling to close towards each other. Your bum is relaxed. So check in. The tops of the feet are pulling towards your face. We're getting that front of the shin, anterior tibialis, balance and challenging back of the leg, posterior tibialis. The legs are wrapping in. There's about a fist distance between your heels, your glutes. Your butt is relaxed. If you're not sure, squeeze your butt and then let it go. We want the inner thighs working. The back of the neck is long. You've got your nice natural curve in the low back. We're not mashing it to the ground. The ribs are down. The back of the body is on the ground. We got our measuring sticks. Pinkies go to the top of the pelvis. Thumb goes to a low rib. We pull the elbows wide. Right now, we're checking in. We're nice and relaxed. The body's in a safe position. If you're feeling any tension, you can always bend the knees up a little bit more. Look to find where we don't have any low back gunk or tension. And we're going to breathe here. Eric's elbows are actively drawing wide. He's going to go in through his nose and expand the back of his ribs wide. And he's going to lengthen and engage his abdominal, slow and controlled on the exhale. Your goal is that it's a 3-second in, 5 to 10 second out. And I'm going to go through the checklist. Toes are pulling towards your face. Thighs are wrapping and hugging. If you're clenching your butt, it might feel a little bit more painful. Make sure the butt's relaxed. Elbows are pulling wide. Back of the neck is long. Every inhale is under control. You're breathing and expanding into the rib cage. You're exhaling and engaging your abdominal, lengthening that abdominal. You'll float the hands up over your heart. Bring them into a sphere. Squeeze every fingertip. As you squeeze the fingertips, think your elbows rotate towards the rib cage ever so slightly. As they rotate in, imagine you're holding something in each armpit that you're squeezing onto. And we're breathing big and inhaling. Let's go for 5 more breaths on this position. This would be a calming, relaxing position. If we're still feeling pain, then we're just going to relax and focus on calming breathing and get that system to relax a little bit. A few more inhalations here. Toes pulling. Thighs hugging, fingertips squeezing, back of the rib cage expanding. Everything's going in through our nose, out through our nose. And if all that is overwhelming to work on maintaining or thinking about, just recognize that the more you do this, the better your body will get at coordinating and engaging and calling muscles into the game to participate with you in life. Let's relax it all down. Eric, I know you're looking pretty calm now. Let's give him some last notes. Don't fall asleep on me.
I feel great. It's a miracle.
Up. High five. Nice
Good
job.
work. Pay attention. Do it every day. If you don't do the baseline program, you're only fooling yourself. You don't really know this work yet. It's just that simple. Go to streaming. Do the baseline program. Follow us on here. We appreciate it. Learn from us on there. Find a local foundation training instructor by you if you haven't already. If you're serious, you want to get out of pain, you want the help, our app helps you a lot. Our instructors help you a lot. The combination, it's powerful.
Thank you for the time, everybody. Feel well.